Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here tonight and to be among friends, old and new, and to be together to honor our good friend and the recipient of this year's Arbuckle Award, Jim Coulter. As many of you know, Ernie Arbuckle was the third dean of the Stanford Graduate School of Business, serving from 1958 to 1968, which was a period of great transformation, both in terms of Stanford University, but also, of course, business education. Ernie set the Graduate School of Business on a wonderful course for education that has endured till today. During his tenure, Ernie thought that it was really important to recognize that management education needed to be reimagined and reorganized to ground it in social science research. Ernie committed the GSB to both dual excellence in research and teaching, and today we continue to build on this legacy in preparing our future leaders to navigate the uncertain times that we are living in and to find new opportunities in some of that uncertainty and some of those challenges. And we know that exceptional leadership is needed now more than ever, and not just here locally, but certainly in our country and also globally. And that's why it's so fitting that we've come together tonight to honor Jim for his service to the GSB, his service to Stanford, and his service to the greater community and world. So with this, Jonathan is going to come join me here, and he's going to offer some remarks to Jim, and then Jim will come here and offer remarks for all of us. So welcome, Jonathan.
It is my honor, an absolute honor, to introduce Jim Coulter as tonight's recipient of the 2025 Arbuckle Award. Now, I have just a few minutes to introduce a man who hired me 27 years ago and has had an absolutely profound impact on my life and on the lives of so many others. Now, to do this introduction, it seems only fitting to do what Jim has always taught, which is that if you're going to do a talk, you need to have a strong organizational framework, usually in the form of a list. And for a great list, I'm turning to the GSB school mantra: change lives, change organizations, change the world. And fun fact, where's Derek? He can fact check. But this mantra, Jim is credited with writing during an advisory council workshop years back. So I'm going to use that list in a slightly different order, but I'm going to use the list to make the point that Jim did not just write this GSB mantra, but indeed he has lived it. So let's start with change organizations. A little bit of history. So after graduating from the GSB in '86, Jim joined David Bonderman to manage the family office of Bob Bass, himself an Arbuckle Award winner. And together they did a number of groundbreaking investments. 1992, Jim was 32 years old. He and David amicably left the Bass family to pursue a now legendary investment in Continental Airlines. They founded Texas Pacific Group, and for Jim, set his foundation for changing organizations, both as an entrepreneur and as an investor. Now, the market appreciated TPG's distinctions, and by the time I joined the firm a few years later in 1998, under Jim's leadership, the firm had expanded all over the world, had started an operations group, had done the early tech and healthcare buyouts, and all of these things set the predicate for the private equity industry and generations of firms to come. TPG has now gone on to become a global asset manager. At the core of the firm's ethos has always been a passion for investing, and Jim has made a point to personally walk that walk. Jim's fingerprints, as one who changes organizations, are everywhere. Next. Well, thank you. We're just getting started. Next, let's talk now about changing the world. Now, I vividly remember approaching Jim in 2005. I had just graduated from the GSB, and my idealism was at its peak. I asked Jim about starting a TPG Foundation, which I thought was a fabulous idea. We'll donate a portion of the firm's profits, good causes. And Jim very patiently listened to me. But at the end, he said, of course, we should all be generously making donations. But The skill set that we possess as investors, as board members, as organization builders, is valuable in other contexts. And so donating our time was the place to focus. And most recently, Jim has put his shoulder behind TPG's impact investing franchise, which in totality is about a $100 billion complex, helping over 80 companies in solving problems in climate, education, and healthcare. This is all on the back of Jim's creativity and will. That is changing the world. And lastly, let's talk about changing lives. Unquestionably, Jim has, through all his endeavors, changed the lives of countless people. But as someone who's had a front row seat to his world now for almost 3 decades, what I can unequivocally say is what sets Jim apart is not just what he has done, but how he has done it. Now, there's a lot I can talk about here, but let me tell you what stands out most. He builds trust by seizing upon the precious small moments that really matter, whether that's opening up in the back of a car about a tough decision he's grappling with, or calling me the day David Bonnerman passed away just to be on the phone and to celebrate the life of his friend and career-long partner. Regardless of how busy he might be, he underscores to those he holds most dear just that, by always showing up when it matters most. That can be flying to meet a CEO on the other side of the world, or showing up on a Saturday morning at my daughter's bat mitzvah. That is the essence of Jim, the what and the how. A man whose life work has been about not just writing the mantra of changing lives and changing organizations and changing the world, but living it every single day. And that is why he is so deserving of this high honor tonight. So with that, please allow me to introduce Jim Coulter.
Jonathan, that was too kind, and I'm not 100% sure who you were talking about. One of the great privileges in my life has been to work with partners who are skilled, partners who are intelligent, and partners who have heart. Jonathan exemplifies all 3 of them. I speak a lot in business now in Austin, Abu Dhabi, and Australia in the last 3 weeks alone. But I typically have a point, and I typically have a crutch called a slide deck. I have neither tonight. I asked President Levin, what should I speak about? Because you've been to a few of these. And your answer was, whatever you want. Gracious, but not that helpful. So confused, I went back to something I learned at business school, working with my roommate, the expert in this, Stephen McDonald. I procrastinated. I had honed that skill at the GSB for years. I pretended that I was working on it. I put notes in my iPhone as I flew around the country. I asked many of you for what you might like to hear from me. And I gathered it, and Saturday I dumped it out on my desk and looked for something that ChatGPT could turn into a speech. There was nothing. It was not a chance. So I'm going to try something different. I'm going to violate absolutely everything Garf said, because that's what we do, Garf. And I'm going to pivot. That's a word for failure in Silicon Valley. And I'm going to do a new thing in 2 ways. I'm going to dump the notes out, and I'm going to ask you to stitch them together and see what happens. I picked the first one. After that, the rest of you take over. And the first one is, of course, gratitude. Cicero noted that gratitude is not only the greatest of virtue, it is the parent of all others. So I have to start there. But gratitude in a setting like this bears the risk of becoming an Oscar speech, babbling incoherently until the music takes you off. By the way, in my procrastination, I got into Oscar speeches for a while. It turns out they keep records. Who knew, right? The number 1 person who has been thanked the most in Oscar speeches, any guess? Spielberg. Spielberg, 43, second with 34, God. You know, Wimmer and Gottschall, I've been wondering how Hollywood worked for a long time. I think I just figured it out. We have a hierarchy. But the all-time Oscar record was set by John Landau, who basically was the producer of the Titanic. And in an epic, you got to watch it, it's truly epic, 3-minute, 3-second speech, he thanked 54 individual people. Looking around this room, I was going for the record tonight. I could do it in this room, but I know you'll appreciate it if I actually focus. When I arrived on campus in 1984, I was extraordinarily intimidated. And I had a good reason to be intimidated. Look at the path you've trod. This is an incredible group, and I am awed by the life you've led, all you've accomplished, and it has been my great pleasure to be in your orbit these many years. Secondly, I have to thank the team from Stanford, obviously for this award, but also for so much more. I have to start with the faculty. You know, George, 30 years, friends in the classroom, the famous professors Wolfson, Van Horn, Holloway. The only thing that I can say to all of you tonight is know this: your voices echo in our lives. And lastly, I have to, of course, thank my family. First, always, not last. Penny, who's been my partner through all of it. If Spielberg sits here in the Hollywood hierarchy, Penny sits somewhere up here in mine. None of this is possible without you. Cicero was right. It's the greatest of virtues. And please know that gratitude runs deep and gratitude runs broad tonight. Next choice. All right, pick your problems. But I was asking for suggestions for the speech during my deep procrastination period. I got a number from Wyatt's friends, and most of them were subtly crafted career advice questions. So let's just go there. And I have a special set of career advice for table 11. It goes like this: if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. In blackjack, split aces, 8s, and 9s. It's not enough to attend the meeting. You need to be in the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting. If you are angry or at a bar or it's after midnight, read any text twice before you hit send. If you're angry in a bar and it's after midnight, do not send it at all. And my favorite, I've never found the right attribution for this one, but I've been thinking about it a lot. Don't wrestle with pigs. You will both get dirty and the pig will like it. But I'm going to dive deep on just one point, which is my advice to you is pick your problems. It's come into vogue to tell people to follow your passion. I never quite got that. My passion would be to play forward alongside Lionel Messi. It's a worthwhile passion. It's not a particularly good career choice at this point. I would tell you to pick your problems. I've spent a career picking problems. We sorted out bankrupt airlines. We restructured major banks in US, China, and Korea. We repaired brands, Ducati, building a firm that could do all these things without us. Leadership begins with your problems. Pick a problem that fits you, problems you can solve. If you do that, you'll have a leg up on success and satisfaction. So my advice to table 11, and perhaps to this community more broadly, is make the world's problems your problem. There's plenty to go around. Find the ones that fit your skills, find the ones that are worthy, and just get to work. And, let's go for and. Decision tree methodology asks us that at each point we choose A or B, and the efficacy of the decision flows right from there. The more experience I have, I realize that when big problems are presented to you as A or B, the correct leadership answer is usually A and B. One can be compassionate and conservative. One can be liberal and fiscally responsible. One can be aggressive and empathetic. Profit and purpose can travel together. Universities can defend their principles and admit their mistakes. And, not or. But life is simply more interesting and more fulfilling if you face it as an and problem. Today, the world feels like it's spinning into a knee-jerk mechanical default to or, a black hole of false dichotomy. Are you for business or social responsibility? Are you profitable or are you woke? Do you agree with me or are you a loser? The or thinking is strong on both sides of the aisle. To be clear, there's no free lunch. There are difficult and necessary trade-offs. But as individuals and leaders, and I think President Levin, even as universities, when we're faced with big problems with or constructs, I hope we can search for and find and. And is smart, and is generous, and is usually right. Leadership hacks, let's go to that. I've got 3 hacks that will pass along, things we should look for that I didn't expect. First of all, great leaders are at their core curious. They're curious about how the world works, how it might work, how it could work differently. They're curious about what people think, customers think, the world think. They read, they travel, they absorb. They're curious about how to exceed expectations. They're curious about why they might fail. We look for leaders who will give us answers. I think the magic of leadership is getting the questions right, and that starts with curiosity. Sarah, you have to guard research. You have to guard entrepreneurship. Research is all about curiosity. Entrepreneurship is applied curiosity. Could we do this a different way? Second hack, great leaders are self-aware. We all have our superpowers. Great leaders know theirs. They also know that your superpower can be your kryptonite. What makes you strong is also what may destroy you. They have empathy because they understand their own weaknesses, and because they understand those weaknesses, they surround themselves with scaffolding, not sycophants. Hack number 3, and my last one. Great leaders are optimistic. Yes, they understand practicality. Yes, they understand constraints. But you won't solve a problem if you don't think you can solve it. My partner and friend, Hank Paulson, often notes that effective leadership does not typically start with, follow me, it's going to be terrible. The beast. All right, out of the past 10 years or so, I've had the good privilege to work with Bono, the front man for U2, who it turns out is not only a great lyricist, but an interesting speaker. And at one of our investment conferences, one of our LPs asked Bono, how do you think about social responsibility of business? And Bono said, capitalism is not moral or immoral. Capitalism is amoral. Capitalism is a wild beast. It requires instruction. I don't think that calmed our investor very much, but it is a thought that I've been wrestling with my career for a long time. I've come to understand that business, like capitalism, is a framework of incentives, options. It's not an actor with value or intentions. It is, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, an amoral tool. Fire is also an amoral tool. It can heat your house or it can burn it down. The morality in both fire and business lies not in the tool itself, but in how it's used. I believe what's important is this. Business is amoral. Business people need not be. Business people make the choices. Business people provide the instruction. So that is the GSB's opportunity, Sarah, and its challenge. We can train leaders in ethics. We can encourage development of their personal moral framework, not one we tell them, one that is authentic to them. We can show them the intersection of business, government, and society. And we can educate the leaders who can instruct, tame our wild, but oh so valuable beast. We can do this. We must do this. Really quickly, the Arbuckle architecture, and Susan, this is really for you and Anton. I want to add my recognition. I never met Ernie, as he insisted on being called, but he vaulted this school to prominence and close to my heart. He was a prophet for values-based leadership. The Arbuckle name stands uniquely for an architectural triangle of values. leadership, service, excellence. This triangle is an extraordinary legacy for a man. It's also a valuable roadmap for table 11 over here. And Dean Sewell, they're a worthwhile set of goals for this institution. In the end, it wasn't really the awards that your father left us. It's the architecture, leadership, service, excellence, an architecture for business, an architecture for life. Susan, I'm the 57th recipient of this award, and I'm joined by 7 others tonight. But in reality, we're just a small representation of the people who've been touched by your father's legacy. We thank him and we salute you. On that, I'd like to end with a note that is hopeful that the chaotic and coherent and incoherent perhaps worked, and that you found something useful in this along the way. And I want to end with the sequence of words that to me are the most important words in business, perhaps in life. You won't find them in a contract, you won't find them in a corporate charter, investment memo. The 2 of them are the source code to my personal operating system. They're offered authentically, they're offered deeply tonight. Simply, thank you.